In this video, we're going to talk about the two situations where we have a negative base and an exponent. The two situations are going to be where you have parentheses and the exponent is on the outside of the parentheses, or ones where you don't have parentheses. If the negative is inside the parentheses, then the negative is going to be repeated with the number. Meaning this example right here, the negative is inside the parentheses, so it's going to be repeated. These parentheses are telling you that that negative goes with that 3. So in this situation, a negative 3 squared is going to be negative 3 times negative 3. If the negative is not inside the parentheses, then the negative is not repeated. If I have negative 3 squared like this situation, the negative is going to stay on the outside, and the only thing that's being repeated is this 3 right here. The parentheses tells you that that negative goes with the 3 when you start using the exponent. This means there's a negative 1 out here, and the 3 is the only thing that gets repeated. So there's a negative, and then it's times 3 times 3, since this is to the second power. So again, if there are parentheses, the negative goes with it. When there are not parentheses, the negative does not get repeated. Examples. The negative is inside the parentheses, so this is going to be negative 2 times negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive. This example, there's a negative, and then it's being multiplied 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, and then I put that negative with it. So it looks like it's the same kind of problem, and you should get the exact same answer, but you don't. Because in this one, the negative is repeated. A negative times a negative is a positive. For this one, the negative is not repeated. You multiply the numbers, and then you put the negative with it. This one has parentheses. That means I'm going to repeat negative 2 this many times. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Positive 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. In this example, the negative is not repeated. The negative is on the outside. The 2 is what gets repeated 3 times. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, and then I take that negative and put it with it. So sometimes you're going to get the same answer when there are parentheses and when there are not parentheses, and sometimes you're going to get different answers. Getting the same answer or getting different answers is really dependent on whether or not the exponent is even or odd. So this is only true if there are parentheses. These two rules that we're about to go over only apply if you have parentheses and an exponent on the outside of the parentheses. Here are the two rules. An even exponent of a negative number will always be positive. An odd exponent of a negative number will always be negative. So if I have an even exponent out here and a negative number inside the parentheses, my answer will always be positive. If I have an odd number on the outside of the parentheses and a negative number inside, my answer will always be negative. Examples of these rules. Instead of me having to multiply this 1 out as many times as I have to, I can look at the exponent. I know 1 times 1 times 1. As many times as I multiply 1 together, I was always going to get 1. I just look at the exponent then, and it's going to tell me whether or not this is going to be a positive 1 or a negative 1. This is an odd number, so that means my answer is going to be negative. For example, number 2, it doesn't matter how many times I multiply 1 to itself, I'm always going to get 1. I'll look at the exponent. It's even. That means my answer is going to be positive. I'm not going to multiply negative 1 to itself 50 times. I know that once I start multiplying ones together, I'll always get 1. I look at this exponent, and if it's even, my answer is positive. If it's odd, it's negative. 50 is even, so that means it's going to be positive. Negative 1 raised to the 99th power. I know I'm going to get 1. It matters on whether or not it's positive or negative. I look at this number right here. Is this number even or odd? It's odd. So that means I'm going to get a negative as my answer.